Welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the defining moments that shape extraordinary people into who they have become. Our today's guest is Preston Chandler, a global strategy operator, lead at WPP, co-owner of the Transformative PEM Center, co-author of the Agile Code and the Breakthrough Innovation, and host of the Breakthrough Innovation podcast. Preston has spent 20 years asking one stubborn question: Why do smart people do not why do smart people with good intention and real resources so often get stuck working in ways that do not work? But before the Fortune 500 boardroom and the books, there was a smaller company, a dead-end career path, and a boss who let him go with a generous, sovereign package. That force exists that become the pivot that sent him everywhere. President Chandler, it's a pleasure and honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, Benaya. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So, Preston, now, before the transformative work, before the books, who were you in your early age, earlier career, and what did you think the path was supposed to look like?
I don't really know what I expected this to be like when I was in college, but I envisioned that, I'd get a job and it would just be amazing and people would see how amazing I was. And then, they'd make me the boss and that would be it. Like it was really simple in my head that this is what it was going to be like. It didn't take me too long to realize that that was fantasy. I mean, that's not really how careers are made. That's not really how people work. And it, to some extent, it was a rude awakening. It was kind of startling to figure that out, that whatever this vision in my mind was, that it didn't actually come to be true, for better or for worse. I think that there were some great things that have happened in my life that I could never have planned on.
That was really a lot, and having to kind of live, thinking about when you're in school, university, and the fact that the idea was more of just, yeah, get out, join the business, and having to become a boss, and them liking you, and a whole lot of different instances. So you were working in 100,000 company with nowhere left to go on the career path. What did that actually feel like day to day, and how long did you sit inside before things changed?
I had a couple of jobs in college, a couple of internships, and then I took what was basically a full-time job just before I graduated, a couple months before I graduated college. And it's about, like I said, about 100-person company, 120-person company. And I came in as the leader of the quality and continuous improvement stuff throughout the company. And my passion is not so much quality. It's much more continuous improvement. How do we make things better? How do we make things work better in an organization? Over the course of the next couple of years, I tried to apply all these wonderful things that I had learned from school and apply them in the real work environment. And I had some success. Not as wild success as I was thinking, but this was back in 2008 there was a financial recession in the United States, and work was tough, and we were barely scraping by as a company. And I did a couple of initiatives to find ways to save money and find ways to do work better. And what we found is that the initiatives that I had done, looking back on it, they just about equaled our profit for the year.
Oh,
So all the work that we'd done was about the only reason why we had profit that year, and for 2 years in a row. And I was getting to the point where after a couple of years, I felt like, I understand the company. I know what's going on. I've made a couple of improvements here and there. And I went and talked to my boss to say, what can I do next? How can I grow? I want to grow. I want to learn. That's my personality. Let's do new things. And to my surprise, he basically said, well, Preston, there's not a whole lot of other places to go in the company. It's a small company. People don't retire. It's family owned. So you want to have a career path, and it's not going to work in the company. What you could do is I could keep paying you full time for your full time. I guess you can go and learn how to play golf. And I was blown away because I was like, but I don't really want to learn how to play golf. I want to learn how to run a company. I want to learn business. And not too long after that, I started looking for some other opportunities, and I was open with my boss to say, hey, I'm going to look for some other some other places to work. And I looked and looked, and right before Christmas, my boss happened to be driving me home from work because we started carpooling.
Yeah.
And he drove me home from work and dropped me off. And he said, "Hey, Preston, I've talked about this with the company CEO, and we've decided that we need to basically kick you out of the nest. You're way past what we use you for within the company. We're going to give you a nice severance package because we like you, but you need to go do something else." And he said, "Have you considered consulting?" And I had never considered consulting. I figured that I would be a boss in some organization, hadn't considered consulting. And I'll be honest, that was hurtful. I was hurt. My boss wasn't trying to hurt me. He was really trying to be nice to me and
Yeah.
trying to help me spread my wings. But I was hurt for a bit, particularly happening right before Christmas holiday. And so I went and decided to apply for some jobs, and I applied for a number of them. I had a couple of interviews. I didn't make any progress for the first month or so. And then I decided that, you know what, let me try something different. He said consulting. And so I went and I found a couple of consulting jobs, and I applied for a couple of consulting jobs, and I actually got a job in consulting.
Ooh.
And surprisingly, like out of the blue. And so for me, it was something that I hadn't considered, and I had to have someone be kind enough to me to be blunt, to be direct, and where he could say, "Hey, Preston, you belong somewhere else. You should go try something else." So I went and tried it. I took the job in consulting, and I can say that for most of the last 20 years, what I have done is basically consulting work. Whether or not I have the title of consulting, I found that that's where I enjoy to be. I want to be much more of a coach. I want to be much more of a consultant. That's more enjoyable and exciting for me. But again, it took someone being kind enough to be blunt for me to have that conversation myself.
Yeah, that was really lovely. Yeah, it's very fascinating story. The fact that him getting to see potential in you, and even at first offering the fact that yeah, you can go try a couple of things, and he will keep paying your salary. That just got me out like, oh, that level of trust, and that's really lovely. And the fact that he was able to pitch the fact that you can actually go for consulting, even if that was something you have never thought before. It's amazing. So looking back, that exit became a significant shift in your trajectory. But what did it feel like in that moment before you could see it clearly what it was?
I, I was confused. I was lost a bit. I was depressed. Because I had some image in my mind of what the future would be, and all of a sudden that was in my perspective that was taken away from me. I realize now that that was a bad perspective to have. And I've also realized that while it's really healthy to have a vision of the future, it's really unhealthy to hold on to that vision too tightly. And so I had another boss a few years later who would tell me that the best leaders have a strong opinion loosely held.
Mm.
And so he said it's important to have strong opinions, and it's important to fight for your strong opinions, and it's important to fight for the vision that you have in your head, but you have to be willing to loosely hold it. In other words, as soon as you see evidence that really says, "Oh, you got it wrong," the best thing you can do is say, "Oh, I got it wrong," and then try something different. He said some of the worst leaders are the ones who have strong opinions tightly held, and you cannot convince them that something is different. You cannot convince them to change their path because their opinion is so tightly held. And so that's been something that I have really tried to follow in my career is when I have opinions that I tried to have them loosely held, and I allow myself to be persuaded, enticed by different people so that they can bring their case to me. And I'll be honest, if it's an area of expertise, I'm not likely to change, but I can change. If somebody brings good evidence to me, I'll be like, you know what? I have learned in this moment. I can change in this moment. I think that's been really helpful for me. And a couple of years ago, I had a boss ask me how things were going, and I said, you know what? I feel a little bit like a ship on the ocean, and I'm getting pushed around by all the wind. and it happens to be going in an okay direction. And I think I probably could have used a little bit more self-direction in that moment, but at the same time, realizing that you're gonna be pushed in a lot of different ways, and the best thing you can do is to make the most of the moment. And trying to cling to this long-term vision and, in spite of everything, cling to that long-term vision, that works sometimes, but what I found work a whole lot more in my life is to be willing to pivot, to be willing to change as needed and grasp the moments that happen. That honestly, that's where a lot of the biggest innovations happen. That's where entrepreneurship happens. It's usually not the people who have been trying to pursue that forever. Most of the time, when you talk to entrepreneurs and find the successful ones, they'll be like, "I was in the right place at the right time. I grabbed whatever was happening in the moment and I took that." And that's what makes them that successful entrepreneur. Not that they always had this big vision, but they grasped the moment and took the vision in the moment.
Yeah, amazing. This is really, really amazing, and a whole lot of things to get to piece in here. Yeah, why it is healthy to have a vision, it's unhealthy to hold on to it, and also why it's very good to have more like an opinion. It's very, very, very good, but like when you head it loosely compared to having to kind of having a strong basis of how you actually hold it, and this just speaks volumes to having an idea is that saving it owing to the various opinion you have, owing to the various strong point that is being brought into the table, and yeah, a whole lot of stuff. And the fact that, yeah, a whole lot of people who actually get successful is not the fact that they have it all figured out from the head starts. It's the fact
Right.
that they saw the opportunity, they hold on to it and are wrong with it. Other than having the pictures that might not even exist, that won't even come to pass. It's really amazing. Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. So what did you do with surveillance that opened the space that followed? And how did that period of uncertainty eventually point you towards the working life?
Well, I had to go through some the stages of grief might be a way to describe that. I had to mourn what I was losing. I had to accept that it was lost. I wasn't going to get back to that. I had to start being able to look forward to the future and be accepting of what would happen in the future. And it wasn't easy. I think that I held a little bit of pain, of hurt for a while, and it wasn't a long time, but I held it for probably longer than I needed to. And but eventually, it took me about 3 or 4 months to get to the next job, and it was honestly a really good fit for me. They needed somebody with a strong background in statistics or in mathematics, and I have a degree in statistics, and that worked out really well. They needed a lot of the skill set that I had, and so it was a good fit for me for the moment. And then I would say that I started falling into the same patterns again, the same bad habits again of all of a sudden imagining my future, like consulting. Now this is my whole future. I will progress through the consulting company and I will be a boss in the consulting company and all this kind of stuff. You know what? I lasted there about 4 years, and that was it. That was about all I needed to do. It was a lot of growth, but eventually I had to recognize that that's not my future. I,
Mm.
I can't I can't try to create this perfect vision on my future and then get to that. That wasn't working. I think you kind of mentioned it earlier. I didn't even know what I wanted to do anyway. So for what reason would I have to try to cement this future vision of myself when I don't even understand? At that point, I didn't understand what I wanted, what I enjoyed for work. I was almost applying somebody else's vision to myself. I think what I'm learning more and more, and it's been 20 years and I'm still learning, but I'm learning more and more that I can have a really loose vision. I right now, I part of my vision for my future self is that I can spend time with family. That has become important for me, and that I can provide for my family. But exactly what that vision is, exactly what title I have in an organization, that's become less and less important to me. What's more important to me is that I can spend time with my family, that I have a good work-life balance, that I can impact the lives of others. I find that for myself, when I have a job and I don't feel like I can actually bring happiness to other people, if I don't feel like I can impact their lives, then it's not very fulfilling to me. So I think a big part of that, I guess if I had advice for anybody, is to figure out what actually is motivating to you. What moves you along, and then find a way to tailor your career so that it fits that. So that you can enjoy going to work, you can enjoy working because it's fulfilling the things that motivate you.
Yeah, get to look inward and get to kind of find out what are those motivations that speak what else to you. And yeah, find a career that allows you to actually more like get to explore that towards yeah, so that you can show up your authentic self anytime you get to show. That is really amazing.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, and also you have worked across our Fortune 500, giant and scrappy and startup. What do those two environments, different environments, teach you about how people and organizations actually function when the plan is
I think the first thing is that they are much more similar than they are different.
mm,
So a small business and a massive Fortune 500 company, they want to think that they are really different, and they're predominantly the same. There's differences in absolutely, there's differences in types of decisions that are made, but there are a lot of similarities. One way that you might describe it is that people like to say that they're unique. I'm my own special snowflake. It's like, yes, all snowflakes are different, but but they're all made of water and they're all frozen. So the exact shape of that might change, but there's a lot of the fundamentals that are the same. And so what I found is that I can apply some similar approaches to small companies and large companies, or to manufacturing companies, or to software development companies, or to marketing agencies. It's the same basic principles, and they need to be tailored certainly for the different industries, for the different companies. But it's the same basic principles. We usually end up talking about teamwork. We usually end up talking about accountability and ownership. We usually end up talking about leaders who need to lead by creating a good environment for people to be in. That's true regardless of your industry, regardless of your company. They're just true principles, and I think I've really started to understand that more. Is that the good principles of leading and working, they're good pretty much regardless of where you're at. They show up differently, but it's the same good principles regardless of where you're at. Um, there are some obstacles though that come into play when you get a large organization. They tend to get more and more structured, more and more processes, more and more policies. And one of the things that I recommend to those large organizations is that they should think of themselves more like a small organization. They should break it down and to create really small cross-functional teams and empower those teams to do all the work, because then they can make use of this small company feel, a lot of that entrepreneurial feel, and they can get more out of their people. They can get more creativity, more innovation out of their people if they borrow that principle from some of the smaller startup companies. And it's not easy. That can be a really hard one to bring in, because cultures might not allow for it. But otherwise, I mean, I've done work for Ford, Pfizer, Walgreens, and they're just big companies. And big companies have lots of the same problems. They act like they're all different, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of the same obstacles that they face.
yeah, having being accountable for a whole lot of different things and yeah, similar as the same as the big industries. And it's just people when you made reference about having to divide the big companies into smaller companies. Yeah, so that's having the same what is obtainable in a small industry being effective in here to or into compared to managing bigger teams and a whole lot of stuff, which sometimes are a bit demanding. And yeah,
Yeah.
this is really so you have spent 20 years asking why smart resources people get stuck working in way that do not work. What is the answer that you keep arriving at that nobody expects?
Well, maybe there's a couple different answers, because
Yeah.
there's different types of problems, different type of ruts that people get into. One of them is that people just stick with how it's been, what's been done. And it's very common for me to go into an organization and find out that their biggest reason for doing things the way they're doing them is that that's how they've always done it. There's no good reason. They don't fully understand. And I find it funny when I will ask the stupid question. I will ask, "Do you even need to do that?" can we just eliminate that step completely? And then they'll be like, oh, Preston, you don't understand. Here's all the reasons why that step is so important for us. And I'll be like, honestly, I don't think it's important. It's not providing you value. Can you just get rid of that step? But I think that people get so used to the way it is, and then they try to support the way it is instead of think of how could this be different. We get into a really stagnated mindset. I think that's one of them. I think another one is that along with that stagnation mindset is that we tend to have leaders who make decisions, or we expect the leaders to make the decisions. And long term, that just means that fewer decisions are going to be made. If we can actually democratize the decisions, if we can push decisions down to the lowest possible level, then we will have lots of people make decisions. They can make decisions faster because they're closer to the problems. And then that speed of decision making, once that speeds up, then we're able to actually bring about change in the way we work. But again, most of that comes from kind of a stagnation mindset, not having this mindset of how do I change it. Most people figure that they want to work on a system once until they get it in a good spot, and then they'll be done. That's just simply not the way to improve. You have to always assume that the system is broken. And I've had some people over the years tell me, but Preston, you seem like a real pessimist because you say that the system, everything's broken. I was like, no, I'm an optimist. To be realistic about everything's broken, so optimistically, everything can be fixed. We can improve everything because everything's broken. And that's not to get depressed over, that's just to realize that everything is broken, and yet we can still find ways to fix it. There's nothing that's broken beyond repair. We can always, there's always a different way to look at it. There's always, put some time or some people to it. We can always make a change.
Yeah, amazing stagnation mindset. Yeah, the answer is going to be democratize our decisions to make it easier for smaller things, being able to make their own decisions without necessarily having to kind of involve the whole thing, which is about a process before getting things done. And also, it's how it is being done here. That really got me owing to the fact that culture sometimes could be the limiting factor. And I think there's a particular quote that make reference to it that insanity is doing same thing over and over and expecting different results. So they just speak volumes to you that yeah, it's redoing it when the outcome is not actually getting it. And the key result is having to stop and sit and have seen how to do it differently. Yeah, thank you. And also you co-author the Agile Code and Breakthrough Innovation, and now an authoring adapts on AI, the future of work. What does writing do for you, for your thinking, that work in the field cannot?
Well, one, they give me a bit of confidence. Like just the act of writing them has given me some confidence. When I was in college, I took a class that was a corporate communication class. And I can't remember all the situations about it, but I remember the professor not liking me very much. And at one point telling me I would never make it in business because I could not communicate. And that and she gave up on me. She was like, I'm done with you. You can't communicate, all this kind of stuff. And I think that actually impacted me. And I didn't realize how much that had impacted me until I started looking back. And once I had written the first book and once we got to write the second book, I started thinking, you know what? I'm actually a really good communicator. I can write a lot. I can put my thoughts down. And so at this point, I have hundreds and hundreds of pages worth of things that I've written. And I find that by writing things down, I'm able to solidify what's in my mind. And it's not going to be the same for everybody, but for me, that helps me solidify it where I can write it down and make sure that I have my mindset that is written down. It's documented, even if it's just for myself. So honestly, writing those books, I'd love it if other people read them. But my point wasn't to write them and have everybody read them and make a whole lot of money. That was not my point. My point was, you know what? I have this thought. I want to document it. I want to get it down on paper so that I can understand it better myself. And so that's really what those books have been today. My co-author, JL Heather, he likes to say that we've sold tens of copies worldwide. Realistically, I think we're in the thousands, but no, we're not in the millions of books. At least not yet. Benaiah, maybe you tell all your friends about the book and they go read the books, and then we'll have a whole lot more book sales. But again, that wasn't the intent. The intent was to get some thoughts down on paper and try to articulate what is it that's going on in my head.
Yeah, ratings solidify, yeah, the point you're trying to make. And they just people loves the particular quote I heard earlier on that. Yeah, we don't know what we think until we get to pen it down. And yeah, it's really lovely. Thank you so much for sharing. So you have a gift for helping people see they are working in a completely new ways. That moment when something click. Where did that ability come from? And can you point to a moment when it clicked for you personally?
You can't point to a moment. To be honest, there on this one, there wasn't like a light moment or like the bell goes off or anything like that. I can't point to anything like that. Um, I think that to some extent, I've always been thinking about things differently.
Mhm.
Generally, when I look at things, there's a saying that you can't see the forest through the trees, meaning that you're focused too much on a tree and you can't step back and look at the whole forest. I find that I have the other issue is that I look at the whole forest and then somebody comes and tells me, but Preston, look at this specific tree. And I'm like, nah, does that really matter? Cause it's the whole forest. That's just one tree. It won't make much difference here or there. So that's often how I think about it. It's just what's the big picture behind here?
Mm,
Be- Because I'm not saying that details don't matter. Details do matter, but only the details that make an impact on the big picture. There are so many details that just don't make a difference. It's not a big deal. Like, don't worry about all those things over there because they're not actually going to help make a decision. Whether that number was 100 or 1,000 doesn't matter. It's not going to affect the big picture. Again, I don't know when I really realized that, but I mean, I have one of my college degrees is statistics, and you'd think that somebody with a statistics degree is really focused on all the details, but I think I learned a different lesson when I
mm,
have a statistics degree. The lesson I learned is that the law of averages is very powerful,
mm.
and that if you just take a big group of things and look at it, that's probably going to be close enough. It's the law of averages. It's what's the general trend that happens. And as long as you are looking for general improvements, understanding the general trend is great. If I want to look at some very specific improvements or make some really small tweaks, then yeah, I need to have a lot of details. I need to have granular numbers. But for the most part, the stuff that I look at, it's how can we make big changes? And if that yes, I the little tiny details probably don't matter as much. They're not as impactful.
Yeah, amazing. This is really lovely that when you're obsessed about the big pictures, it's easier for you to be able to eliminate those things that doesn't count. So was yeah, going directly and getting the point. And I think a particular point of seven habits of highly effective people make reference of this when you make reference of having the end in mind. I'm more like I'll start
In
with the
my
end.
exactly.
Yeah.
Steven,
Yeah.
look,
Yeah. So you just make reference or you just speak volumes to it that when you have the end in it, you are going to kind of cut out a whole lot of excess. Yeah, that is not the main thing. So that you can get in the main thing, in the main thing. It's a really love. Thank you so much for sharing. So leadership, so looking back at the man who has let go from that 100% company, what are you most grateful for? Being pushed out because of the thinker, the builder, and the leader it has made.
I mean, getting pushed out was helpful. And I look back and I realized that I've had a lot of other bosses in my career. I had a lot of other leaders who didn't care about me that much. And having somebody care about me personally enough to push me out was helpful. And I've had those same leaders from that 100-person company reach out over my career and say, you know what, I'm so proud to see where you're going. And I see some announcement on LinkedIn and it makes me so pleased. And that's amazing to me. Because again, I've had other leaders who, meh, I don't even know that they remember me anymore. But the leaders in that small company do. And I think it's important to recognize those leaders in your own life whether that's somebody in your family or somebody in your company. One thing that my partner JL and I like to talk about a lot is that the axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
Mm.
And so as a leader or as somebody who is speaking, we're using an axe and we can't help it. It's the nature of communication. And there's sometimes things that we will say that other people will remember for the rest of their lives. And they will always remember that. And we probably won't. And it's recognizing the immense power that we have as human beings to impact the lives of someone around us. And that just means it's that much more important for us to be purposeful about what we're saying. And sometimes we do need to cut in a very kind way. I mean, I love making furniture. I make wood furniture in my spare time, and so I recognize that in order to make the furniture, I have to actually cut the wood. To make something beautiful, I have to impact it. So the analogy of the axe and the tree, I'm not saying leaders don't cut trees, but it's realize that your actions will cut. And you can choose to do that just chopping down a tree or actually building furniture, building something beautiful and helping that person along. I think that there's a lot of responsibility that we have as human beings. Again, not specifically as a leader, just as a human.
Yeah, amazing, purposeful about what you're saying, being intentional and weighing it so that at the end of the day you have the person in mind before even getting to kind of make reference to those particular actions. Yeah, this is really amazing. So everyone is raising out to both onto their workflow right now. Where have you seen it genuinely transform? How it didn't work? And where is it just expensive theater?
Well, first I've seen an awful lot of apply AI everywhere, and we don't really notice when it's helping because we apply it everywhere. I think when I see that it really succeeds is when the individual and the team using it identified a problem first and then found out that AI had a solution. I don't know that I've ever seen very much success when a team says, we're going to go find a problem for AI to solve. So when they have AI solution and they search around for problems, that doesn't succeed very well. But when a team is committed to improving their ways of working, or a company is committed to improving how they operate, then they might identify, I shouldn't say might, they will identify some areas where AI could help and support them. But it's a different perspective. It's a problem-solving perspective that happens to use AI instead of an AI solution
Yeah.
that solve a problem or two. I've seen just a lot of AI solutions not solve very many problems.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. A whole lot of things. So yeah, for a team that actually get to work is the one that already know what the problem is. They're bringing AI to actually solve it, other than just indoctrinating, bringing AI into being when the problem is not yet more like sorted out yet. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. So you co-author adapts on AI and the future of work. What is the central argument of the book, and what do you think most leaders are getting wrong about what is actually up?
One of the central arguments is that AI with individuals is not nearly as powerful as AI with teams. And I think the way to apply that or to understand that is that AI really democratizes skill sets. You can take somebody who's mediocre, and with AI they can become quite a bit better. It probably doesn't make them an expert, but they can become better, and they can do some other things. So like myself, maybe I'm not the best at writing advertising content, marketing content, but I can have AI help me with that, and I can become pretty decent. Am I as good as the best content authors? No, I am not, but it's pretty decent. So it democratizes that. And when you can apply that to a team, when you can say, team, we're going to all use AI and it'll democratize a lot of things for us. It'll make a lot of things easier. It'll reduce a lot of those menial tasks or the repetitive tasks for us. It can, I should say. I think that gets pretty powerful because then the team can focus on collaborating as human beings, and they don't have to spend as much time focusing on all the little granular details that aren't really being creative. So I think when we apply it correctly, the future of work is going to be human beings being a lot more creative, because AI and technology can help fill in all of those the technical gaps or the repetitive gaps, so that you don't have to spend most of your day doing a process. I do a lot of process improvement, particularly in the marketing industry. And what we found is that less than 5% of the time is value added,
Mm.
is actual creative time, less than 5% of it. And the vast majority of it is trying to do some manual process. It's trying to finish some report, or it's trying to push information somewhere in an organization, or it's trying to pull information from this system and put it in that system, whatever it is. There's a lot of waste in that. And so if we can simplify that with AI and technology, it allows people to focus much more on things that are valuable to them, telling a story. I think we can see some examples of technology like this. Just look at the calculator. It used to be that you couldn't use calculators, or real mathematicians didn't use a calculator. And we're able to do now, because we have calculators. We can do really amazing math because we have calculators to help us out. So arguably, the mathematicians are able to do even more math today. It's not that the calculator took away math, it opened up new opportunities for the mathematicians.
Amazing. It's open new opportunity for the mathematician. And so same thing AI does too, being that, yeah, it's going to demand the whole level of creativities. And once you're able to input it in, it improves your delivery. Even if you're mediocre, it actually makes you more expert going
Exactly.
to a particular higher level compared to when you get started without those bases. Yeah, this has certainly been amazing. And thank you for sharing your heart on this. Yeah, thank you. So lastly, for leader listening right now, who says there is a better way to work but cannot quite name it, where would you tell them how to look first?
Good question. Well, the first place to look would be looking at themselves. If they're a leader, they should go and ask their teams very openly about what decision the leader made in the last week or two that the team could have made. Because what I find is that teams are generally better when you give teams the ability to define their own work and to improve their own way of working. Teams are pretty good at that if you give it to them. If you tell them, hey, you are responsible for it. If you don't like doing it, if it's a bad process, you improve the process. I don't have to make that decision. You improve the process. So I think leaders who are able to take that step back and say, here are all the decisions I shouldn't have to make. They're decisions that the team should be able to make themselves. That's probably the first step to take, because long term, the team will figure out how to do it better than the leader ever could do on their.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, take yourself first and then how it kind of take the organization and a whole lot of different pieces. Yeah, thank you so, so much, President, for sharing out. Yeah, for making really.
Benaya.
Also, from my audience who would love to connect with you, get you to set up audience, or to reach out to you and connect with you, how can they reach out? Where's the best?
The best place is just LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and look for Preston Chandler, I think that my URL is linkedin.com/Preston Chandler, no spaces. But
Yeah,
there's only a couple Preston Chandlers. There's not too many of us, so you should be able to find me. And I'm happy to connect. I'm happy to chat. I'm passionate about how do you structure organizations, how should leaders lead. Love to have those conversations.
yeah. Thank you so much for listening up. Yeah, thank you for this. For sharing the heart of making. From all this will love to connect. I'll just check the show notes and you see the link to this LinkedIn so that I can really comment. Yeah, your story is the reminder that the dead end is not always failure. Sometimes things the thing that finally force you onto the path you were actually built. A small company that had no more run to 2 decades of helping some of the world's largest organizations find better to work. Yeah, you are proof that being let go being let go can be the beginning of the most important work of your life. Yeah, once again, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Ben. It's been great.